Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Podcast, and I'm jumping right into business, man. We're going straight to takeoff. Launch the alert fighter. It's the game week. And, of course, who better to help me fly this remarkable airplane through the ups and downs of the game week than my ample co-pilot, Austin Ward. Austin Ward, welcome back to the Tim May Podcast.
Ample co-pilot, man. I got to stop going to Roosters every Monday.
Yeah, you know what? That came out wrong, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. You know, my overqualified co-pilot. How about that?
All right.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know when you got a guy that can land.
But you're also not wrong about the other part.
Yeah. But you know when you got a guy that can land a plane at least as well as you can. You know, wow, you got quite the cockpit going for you. But I digress. So Ohio State versus Michigan, and I almost called you awesome. I promised your mom I wouldn't do that anymore. Austin, it's Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah.
It's like the good old days again. The Big Ten East Championship is on the line. Was this like 2016 again? Well, what am I thinking about? When's the last time everything was adding up like this in such a
16 with East Division on the line for one game, winner take all, go to the Big Ten title, go to the college football playoff after that. That was, there's been a few blowouts since then, and competitively it wasn't the same. I mean, this is what you want if you're Ohio State, if you're, across the border on the other side, to borrow those expressions from the Buckeyes. I mean, you want it on the line for this game, and college football is better when this game has those high stakes attached to it. The rivalry is still the best no matter what, even if they were both under 500, that it would be worth watching either way, but boy, it's so much sweeter like this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The 10-year war. This is what was built on Woody versus Bo. Now you got Jim. Well, now you got Ryan versus Jimbo. No, I'm just Ryan versus Jim. But man, it would be fun if they called him Jimbo, wouldn't it? That would be perfect. Maybe they will if he finally wins one of these. But I digress. Right. To help set this game in proper perspective, I've got Matt Wilhelm, former Ohio State linebacker, part of that 2001 team that they didn't know they flipped the script, man. All they knew was they finally beat Michigan, in 2001, Jim Tressell's first season, and the way everything turned from that moment on. Talk about a pivot point. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the paint right there. And then, of course, I've got John Bacon, noted Michigan football and Michigan athletics, but mainly Michigan football historian, noted author. I've got him on to paint the picture. And the great thing about John is he has a eyes wide open approach to everything he does, including what he thinks of this ridiculous Ohio State offense this year on a school record pace in terms of total offense. Just crazy what this offense has become, especially in the last couple of games. You and I are going to get into that a little bit too. But, it is cool to have a guy who's been watching the Michigan-Ohio State series as closely as John Bacon. It's cool to have him on this week. It's also cool to have Matt Wilhelm on, right? A guy who spilled blood in this game and was part of that group that turned it.
I think it's cool to have you on since you've been covering this rivalry as long as well as anybody. I mean, you've seen 43 versions or more. Just just as a newspaper guy, probably add some more into that. Whatever it was before. I mean, there's nobody who's seen. Well, there may be one or two.
Yeah.
But in terms of covering it, I mean, on this side of it, there's nobody who's got that track record as you. So I think that's pretty cool. If I need to know something about what happened in the game, I'm going to you.
Nobody can see it, but I'm blushing. I'm embarrassed with all that you just bestowed on me there. Like I'm some kind of walking, talking encyclopedia, AKA Jack Park. But I have seen. I remember watching these games, man, on television. The highlight, back then you couldn't have every game on television. You well know back in the 60s and 70s, and team couldn't be on national television more than 3 times in 2 years. And but I remember the '68 game, the confetti falling from on high in that game. It looked like it was snowing, and Rex Kern and company got the job done. And from then on, believe it or not, I remember watching the game on our old black and white television in Demopolis, Alabama. I swear it was a 61 game, I think it was, but Ohio State had those helmets with the big what do you want to call it, scarlet stripe, although it was basically a black stripe on their helmets on black and white television, but those were pads. Remember those old helmets? You've seen pictures of those old helmets. The grand experiment back then to even lessen the impact of head-on collisions, which we live with today, which is ejections. But I digress. But yeah, I go back a long way from keeping up with this game, even though, as everybody knows, I grew up an Alabama fan and grew up in Texas and stuff. But this game has always held my fascination because of almost always it seemed like there was something on the line that mattered. And it is again this weekend. It is kind of cool how these two ships have headed into this collision again, right? With so much on the line, isn't it?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, Tim, when I think about what's on the line on Saturday, and I don't think, I'll just say this before we even get into it later in the show.
Yeah,
I don't think Michigan is capable of winning this game on Saturday, but I did not think at all that the Jim Harbaugh era would allow this to happen again with these stakes. I thought that he had, lost control, that the patience was out. He was trying to leave actively, whether a lot of people want to admit that fact or not, in Ann Arbor, and he wasn't desirable at the NFL level. I mean, he wasn't going to take another college job. I mean, that's the only place that he knows that. Yeah. But it, could have made a justifiable case in the last year or two for Michigan to move on from him, just because the results weren't there, and that's why he has such a smaller contract now. Because maybe they didn't think they could do better than this guy, but they also recognized he wasn't doing the job that they wanted him for. So he's made some dramatic changes, and they seem to be taking the rivalry more seriously. He brought in some younger, newer ideas on the coaching staff. They've played very hard for him this year. They let one get away that they probably should have won. Yep. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee certainly thinks that they should have beat Michigan State as well. That's beside the point. But I didn't think that he would turn it around enough that he would get to coach in another game of this magnitude against Ohio State. So before any of the rest of it, I think that's, I will give them credit for that and give Jim Harbaugh credit for that. To get it back to this level, I didn't think he could do it. So that part is very, very cool, and he does deserve credit for that.
John Bacon and I get into that to quite an extent, and John basically lays out the details of that pay cut, et cetera, that Jim Harbaugh took, but it has incentives in it, and if he beats Ohio State and wins a Big Ten championship, he gets almost all of that cut back. I mean, that's what's crazy.
And he would have earned it. He would have earned it.
Absolutely. Hey, maybe that's the way life should be played, But as you pointed out, I think in a tweet last week, or a couple of weeks ago, somebody was talking about this, that, and the other about coaches' incentives and stuff. And you go, well, wait, isn't that what they're paying you your big time salary to do in the first place, is compete and win championships, and make sure players are, to a certain extent, staying in school, graduating, getting their academic stuff done. Why do you get bonuses for things that you're supposed to be doing it'd be like you getting a bonus every time you complete a story and somebody goes, hey, that's a pretty good story. Boom, you get a $10,000 bonus. I mean,
that sounds like a great idea.
I know it does, but is it going to happen? What's your thought? What's your thought process on that?
Seems unlikely, but and that's the part of it. Like, Jim Harbaugh wanted to do all these things and take Michigan to Rome and South Africa, wherever,
Paris,
everywhere other than Indianapolis. That's fine. Like, great job. Everybody who goes to Michigan is going to get a good education. Everybody who goes to Ohio State is going to get a good education. Yeah. And if they're going to continue to play football, they're going to have good grades. This stuff is not like out of the norm.
Right.
It's not what you pay the football coach to do, because you're not allowed to play football if you don't do that part anyway. Yeah. So that's not up to them. Like, if Matt Campbell is the one standing up there and saying, oh, well, I didn't say that our goal was to win the Big 12 this year, even though a bunch of his players did, because that's what you play to do. And it's foolish not to have that listed as a goal for your team. But he's claiming that he never said they needed to win the Big 12 this year, or that was their goal, and that they only needed to be the best versions of themselves. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. And if you believe that, then take that bonus out of your contract that says for every win over 6, every conference championship, every bowl appearance, that you're getting paid this amount of dollars. Like, I mean, you have to have tangible goals. Otherwise, he should be just volunteering to work there for free.
You know, me asking you that question reminded me of one time I patched a garden hose with tape, and then I didn't think it was holding well, so I pulled the tape off and boom. You know what I mean? That's what I love about you, Austin Ward. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Tim May podcast proceeds.
You knew what was going to happen.
What? Oh yeah, I know. That's why I just sat back and you notice I didn't interrupt you. You know, that one guy always gets mad when I interrupt people. I didn't interrupt you. I let you go on. You're still. It was kind of like a guy appearing on a late night TV show. He's got a great comedy skit going. I'm not going to interrupt it. I agreed with everything you just said. I mean, how much is too much? You know, when it comes to doing your job. I mean, geez. I mean, I almost said a really bad word there, but I mean, it's crazy anymore. And you know what? I think colleges, I just when I thought they were coming to grips with this, I'm not sure they are, man. You're seeing guys get fired, what is Dan Mullen getting for he just got this big contract renewal, et cetera, a year ago when he played for the SEC championship. He's gone now. What do they owe him? Is it $10 million? I can't remember the amount of money. And they just fired him at Florida.
12 for Mullen.
Yeah. And they're just almost like laughing it off. Like, hey, we're going to get somebody in here, you know, fourth try after Urban Meyer. We're going to get somebody in here who really knows what he's doing. Hey, good luck with that. You know, I guess Urban Meyer, final analysis at Florida, was a pretty damn good coach, right?
He sure was. Yeah.
Yeah. And he, you know, who knows? He might want to go back down there, you know, after what's going on in Jacksonville.
Oh, Tim, don't start that now.
Yeah, I'm just messing. He knows I'm messing. You know I'm messing. You know, without further ado, though, let's get to my guest this week, and then you and I'll come back and chop it up like in the sous chef department like we always do. But, man, it's great having this next guy on, man. He was on earlier this year talking about the problems that the Ohio State defense was having at that moment, how they could fix them, and now he's watched this defense come of age. I'm talking about Matt Wilhelm, a former Ohio State linebacker, former NFL linebacker. And, you know, I mean, Austin, this defense came within a play or two of pitching a shutout against a team that brought in the number one running back in the country at least a week ago, Kenneth Walker III. This Ohio State defense really has made huge strides in the last 7 or 8 weeks. I think you agree with that, right?
100%.
And so let's get to Matt Wilhelm's take on that, but also as we start my little segment with him, you know, he played in that 2001 game, the 2002 game, the game. He knows what it's all about, what it was all about to not be beating Michigan and then to turn around and beat Michigan, what it took, what Jim Tressel brought to the fore there, and what continues to this day in this program. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Matt Wilhelm. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of return visits, a return visit by Matt Wilhelm, former linebacker for Ohio State, former NFL linebacker of some repute. Isn't that right, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Hey, welcome back to the Tim May podcast, my man.
It's great to be here. Always happy to talk some ball with you.
Yeah, I love this because if people knew the truth in advertising, and if you don't want me to tell people where you are, I won't, but this is definitely a true remote as far as Matt Wilhelm is concerned. But
it absolutely is. We took the opportunity to get out of Dodge and bring the family up to Northern Maine to spend some time with my wife's dad and have Thanksgiving here with him. So, but again, it's the week, right? Yeah. It's the game. And so I'm happy to take 20-25 minutes to spend some time with you because it's of utmost important to me too.
All right, let's just get right to it. You were on the team that flipped the series. Who knew it was going to flip the series on its ear, but it put a lot of people out of agony in 2001. Yep. And as you said, you got predicted, you guys went up there and made people proud of Ohio State football team again. What do you remember about that week, just about that week, the build up to that game and what it felt like to take care of business up in the big house?
Well, sure. I feel like the introduction of Jim Tressel at St. John's Arena, making that statement, and then it was both him and the staff's ability to emphasize the game and what it means to play in that game. And I think what a lot of people don't know, and I'm sure it's been discussed, but Jim Tressel would have us as a team watch snippets of the prior year Michigan game. So you figure in 2001, we were watching the 2000 game that we lost. at home, and we would watch, whether it be a series on offense, maybe one day it was just the punt, right? And look at the protection and look at the return and look at how we flip the field and the little things like that. And again, as cliche as it sounds, and I'm sure, with as much as you've written in your life, it's a game of inches, but I think more so than ever in a game, every down, every yard, every inch. And again, going back to the JT Barrett, fourth down play, right?
Yeah.
A matter of inches or an inch is the difference between winning and losing this game. And it was, I think, just a real emphasis by Coach Tressel and this staff on the game to have us ready for that week. And I think, going into 2001, we were learning a lot about ourselves as players. We were learning a lot about our coaches as it was a new staff. And so the one thing that we did know was that this game meant more to this staff and Coach Tressel and now to us than it did the prior few years. Again, nothing against any other coach, because again, I committed to John Cooper, based around success that he had developing players and winning football games and competing for championships. So it was just different. And I think that the same way that, Ryan Day, this Michigan State game off, he probably walked off the field, hugged his wife, sang the alma mater, got out of the locker room and scrapped that victory, as sweet as it was. And as much as it meant to keep our college football playoff hopes intact, it was Michigan week.
Yeah. You know what? He already had his game face on. He even admitted he started thinking about Michigan in the fourth quarter. Why not? Right.
Right.
I mean, he already had his game face on, didn't heap a lot of praise on anybody, even though we all asked him some questions, 56-7 over the number 7 team in the country. And, anybody else would be doing cartwheels. No, It wasn't over. And, you're young enough to remember in 1996 when Ohio State beat Indiana at Indiana. And after that game, it's with a dramatic, aided by a dramatic defensive touchdown that game, by the way. And after the game, the Ohio State players were walking around with roses in their teeth. People had handed them roses and stuff. But there was still a game to play called the game. Yeah, and you ended up getting beat, 13-9. Still went to the Rose Bowl. Still won the Rose Bowl, but there was still that wow, that one cavity, that never.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said about. It's kind of like a program spotlight when you look at how both Ryan Day, his coaches and players immediately, flipped the switch not only to Michigan, but I think it just goes to show that the satisfaction and you look around the country, maybe I'd say, this year, Bama, Georgia, of course, Ohio State the aspirations aren't to blow out another ranked opponent or to beat another ranked opponent. It's the opportunity. And I think it's the tournament now. It's win or go home. Yeah. And I think because of the flaw early in the season against Oregon, which has now kind of been eradicated because they're no longer in the picture. It's if we keep winning, we're in and we can check. And along the way, of course, beating Michigan will be a big box to check, but you keep everything intact. It's staying undefeated in Big Ten play, beating Michigan, go to the Big Ten championship game, win the Big Ten championship, and then, of course, project into the college football playoff. And then at that point, as we very well know, whether you're a 1 or a 4, you're in the tournament and you can check multiple boxes. And I think that it's very satisfactory to get this win. But I think also more than anything, it's you sent a message across the country, and I think that the AP probably took it, the coaches as well, and you saw the jump of what a game like that does. And I think even furthermore, now that we transition to the Michigan game, is I loved every second of Haskell Garrett's guarantee. Was I cringing mildly ahead of the game? Sure, because that's a big ask, to stop their Heisman Trophy winner. And limit what they did because of what Mel Tucker has done up there in Michigan State. But the way in which you did it, the way in which you delivered on that guarantee was amazing as a former Buckeye, but a lot for the fans. But I think also another message sent to the country. And even furthermore is you look at the strong suits of what Michigan does, big, tough, gritty, running the football, playing great defense. Well, and I know that the pass defense for Michigan State's not the greatest in the world, but the physicality up front was what they were touted for, and we took them and crunched them. And I think it really transitions very well to take the strengths of a Michigan football team that's played very well and to be able to mitigate what they do and navigate it and just show what Ryan Day as a play caller and the strides that Stroud has made to now be, if not the one of two Heisman favorites, has been amazing to watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. I want to get to the Haskell Garrett and the defense thing in a minute, but I wanted to ask you this. This is the game. Like I grew up, like I started covering Ohio State, knowing it. The winner, and if it advances, like you said, and wins the Big Ten championship, is in the college football playoff. It has about as much on the line as the game that's ever been played. You know, in the modern day parameters of the winner wins the Big Ten East and goes on to the Big Ten championship game. There's something to be said for that, isn't it?
Oh, there absolutely is. And I think that our ability to rise to the occasion at home on senior day, and I know it because I was a part of it against Michigan as my final home game. There's a lot of distractions centered around senior day, you know, and there's navigating as coaches, making sure some of those guys get in the game, that they're ready to play their best last football game in the horseshoe. For me, it was, seeing my parents, on the field, embracing running out and walking off that field in my last game in the horseshoe. But that all fell by the wayside because of what was at stake. And it was the opportunity to play for a national championship. And I think that you saw our Buckeyes go out and put all that stuff to the wayside and take care of business. And essentially the way that they did is what is opening everybody's eyes. But even furthermore, it just sets the table for that this team is not who they were, maybe a few weeks before you and I first chatted.
Yeah.
There's no question at quarterback. There's no question around our ability to stop the run. There's no question around our offensive line and their ability to play their best and to have Travion Henderson, or who's going to be the running back, and is Travion Henderson going to be able to, are we going to be able to run the football? All those questions have been answered because of the last 3 to 5 weeks and essentially against another great team this past weekend. And I think more than anything, it's the mindset, the business mindset that we took into this game, our ability to go out and play our best when we needed to. And I think it just goes to show that, what this program, what these coaches, and what these players are really all about, and why, we all feel so confident going up to the state up north and being able to have our business and continue on our journey towards something bigger.
Yeah, your analysis of what was going on with the Ohio State defense way back when we first talked early in the season, when things were quite, in disarray, changes were being made. The defense caller was changed to Matt Barnes from Kerry Combs, was right on the money. But you also basically said it wasn't a time to panic, et cetera. It was a time to really bear down, make a few changes, but also, as you pointed out, and we all tried to point out to people, this was a young defense eight games ago. I mean, if you watched my when I asked Haskell Garrett after the game on Saturday after the win over Michigan State, the biggest difference in this defense compared to then is experience, which brings confidence, which brings guys playing much more as a glove, a tight knit group. And what have you seen though, Matt Wilhelm? I mean, you played this game at the highest level.
Sure.
What do you see that's good about this defense?
Well, I think that they now have an identity, and I think that was very much in question.
Yes.
And I think we about, you asked me, who are the young players that I enjoyed watching through 4 or 5 football games, and we mentioned those. And I think for the your passionate Buckeye fans can probably rattle off 8 or 9 or 10 of the 11 starters on defense. But for the common Buckeye fan who just wants to see the silver bullets flying around, we don't have the name recognition, or we did not have the name recognition, and now it's, Harrison, and you got, Eichenberg, and you got Simon, and and of course, Burke's still playing well. And you got, of course, Haskell Garrett, and you start to rattle off, the names because of, we now see those guys making plays. Yeah. And I think they're slowly getting seeing an identity. I love of course we're going to play man free. That's our MO because of our ability to recruit such high level talent on the back end. But I love to see the mix and match of, we're seeing tackles for a loss. We're seeing sacks. We're seeing our young linebackers being much more confident to shoot a gap and make the play. But again, the college game now and the college game that I played in are completely different, right? We saw 22 personnel, 12 personnel, 21 personnel, a hell of a lot more than we're seeing, empty backfield sets and the spread off. So guys are out on an island. And I think because players we're so young and playing for the first time on the football team in these high pressure situations, because again, it's, you lose and you're out. That's the feeling around college football. And we've played our way back in the situation, but guys through that experience, and I think, crossing over, you're seeing it from just the strides that were made by Stroud is, you questioned Stroud early in the season, the same way you question the defense. And now 9 games later, we're number 2 in the country. You look at the stats that pop up on the TV screen about where we were giving up, 425 to now giving up, 300, 315.
Yeah.
The points per game goes down 30 plus to, just over 20. And so it's all those things just continue to move the needle towards an identity, towards being a complementary defense to how explosive and such a powered offense we have.
Who does number 22 Steel Chambers, the guy that was a running back this time of year?
I love that kid. I love that kid.
Well, what do you just see that just stands out? I mean, he like nobody else on this defense. I mean, loves to get a guy right in the gap and form tackle.
Yeah.
But what just stands out about him? What is he added to the mix? Because when we were talking way back when, he wasn't really in the picture, like he is now. Go ahead. What
I love about him is he doesn't know what he doesn't know because he's not a linebacker. And I'll go back to now a buddy of mine who, when Zach Bourne went from fullback to linebacker, he didn't know what he didn't know. He just see ball, go get ball. Yeah. And I think that's, an added element. Now, can you have 4 or 5 guys out there like that? They've never played a lot of defense? No, but you add a great athlete who's been a running back, who understands the tendencies of a running back, who understands, gaps and fits. He just brings the athleticism of a running back, not necessarily a linebacker. And I think you see that playmaking ability. I think he adds with as much man as we play. You're putting a running back on a running back. You're not putting a linebacker on a running back. And I think his ability to get a guy to the ground is uncanny for a guy who's made a transition and hasn't played a lot of football. So I think just the diversity that he brings to our defense with a skill set is been amazing to see. And, 22 ends up with the ball in his hands, ends up at the bottom of the pile, a heck of a lot more than anybody thought we'd see.
Yeah. And the other guy, Ronnie Hickman, number 14, basically the bullet, in the defense, but all, in essence, lining up is a lot of times they're lining up now in 2 deep safeties and stuff, but then firing things out of that and stuff, leads the team in tackles. Just he and Chambers, I said, it's kind of like now you've seen develop 2 guided missiles almost, on this defense that can strike. And on top of like the other guys making progress, but those are 2 guys playing it. I hate to say it out loud, but almost an elite level of the way they are sure about where they're going. They may not always make the play, but they bring a lot to bear once they get there and stuff. But how much has Hickman, you think, really added to this defense?
It's been great. And I think it also adds, those 2 players add to the identity. I think when you look, put yourself in the offensive shoes of a team that would play our defense, you didn't have to account for any one guy like you have in the past, whether it's, we got to account for Chase Young. We got to account for the Bosa brothers. We got to account for, these plethora of linebackers that are, see ball, go get ball, run and hit guys. We didn't have that early in the season. And I think what Hickman and Chambers have done is pre-snap, they've got to account for those guys. So they're going to run away from them. They have to be able to account for Hickman coming, high to low, on blitz, running through, inside tackles are coming off the edge. You have to account for them. And there's a significant amount of prep that's done in identifying those game breakers. And I think that's what we didn't have. We had a bunch of guys who were just learning on the run, playing football for the first time. And now the identity, the continuity, I think, the change from, Combs to Barnes, and it's, you know what you're going to get each and every week. And then you blend in what the offense is going to do and try to stop, some of their strengths and limit their strengths. I think we saw what a great opportunity it was this weekend, and we did that. Yeah. And I think and that's what, my confidence is always high, whether, it's at home or going up to the state up north to play, that team is, I'm going to go back to Haskell Garrett's guarantee. You just don't do that against the Heisman hopeful, and things just go exactly the way that, this one player, nationally, because it was everywhere before the game, before a game like that, of that magnitude, and then you go out and do it and deliver. I think that's also just goes to show, again, the mindset of Ryan Day and his staff, having these players ready for the moment, and they have to forget last week's moment and engage in this week's moment to go deliver again and again, which I think they've done.
That first defensive series, but especially had Craig Young on the field for the first play. Hey, what are you doing? Number 15. Hey, you're attacking. You're attacking their offensive front. This is not going to be the most memorable day for Kenneth Walker III, unless you're talking about bad memories. That was
right, absolutely.
That was all about. Hey, last two things. And I promise last two things. I'm famous, as you well know. You better as well as anybody of asking 6 more, but I will limit to this because you're enjoying your well-earned time off. As a fan now of Ohio State more than anything else, and actually former player who spilled blood in the game and other games, but is it fun to watch Ohio State play offense? I mean, how would you describe it, to someone who doesn't know much about football, but I mean, they're on a record pace in terms of total yards for a game. They're scoring, they're leading the nation in total offense and also in scoring. Is it fun to watch this group? I mean, how would you describe it?
It is fun. And I think what's fun for me, because, I watch NFL games on Sundays and watching the game as a linebacker, as a former player, I don't watch the game as a fan. And the reason why when I go to a game, I don't like sitting too close to the field. I like to be in the club level or even low C deck, right? So I can see the all 22 because it's the way in which I studied the game when I was a player.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because you look at the concepts and you look at the way that Ryan Day and Stroud and these receivers attack a defense and attack tendencies and how guys are able to run by guys and be so open. And when the deep ball is not available, how they're content taking the 8-yard hitch and mixing in the run. And then you get the crossing routes. And then you just get flat out, Wilson, Smith and Jigba and Olave, breaking a tackle and then what they do with the football after the catch.
Yeah.
It really is truly, basketball on grass. And I have to say this, as a fan, because I don't actually always, what some people always, might think is, oh, he's a former player, former NFL guy. He just gets to sit down and watch the game all the way straight through. And I'm like, no, I've got a 13-year-old, I've got an 11-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old running around. Right. So, but with the one thing, so I think the offense, to your point, has become must-see TV. And even as a former defensive player and a silver bullet, I watch the offense and then go chase the baby while the defense is on the field. And then the defense does its job, gets the ball back to the offense, and we score again already. So the offense has become must-see TV. I think that's, just who's going to score the next touchdown, right? There's probably 4 names will rattle. You can throw in Ruckert, but, as great as a 5-star recruit as he is, as great as a tight end as he is, and I think that he'll transfer very well to the NFL. There's only one football, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's become must-see TV, and I think it's so great. And I think as a defensive player, going into this game, as great as that Michigan defense is going to be, and as ready as they will be, it's just who you going to stop? What are you going to do? Because all we heard all week was, again, Michigan State's defense was bad. It's don't let TreVeyon Henderson get downhill, and keep the football. Don't let the guys beat you over the top. Yeah. And we scored 3 over-the-top touchdowns.
Yeah.
So when a team makes a point of emphasis to try to stop something that we do, as great as a Michigan State team was, they still couldn't do it. They couldn't coach it well enough all week. They couldn't emphasize it well enough all week that their players could actually go out and execute, which just goes to show when Ryan Day and his staff, get into their meeting with their guys and put together a game plan, they are, with skill and preparation and route combinations, just out executing the other team on a week in, week out basis. And I would expect to see the same this Saturday.
All right, last question. I said that. I'm going to stick with it.
All right, thank you.
What's your sense Saturday? You don't have to give me a score prediction, but does Ohio State's won 17 of the last 19 in this series, going back to 2001 when you, Matt Wilhelm, and others turned the tide. Who knew that ship was going to turn as quickly and as irrevocably as it has? That's probably not the right nautical term, but I'll leave it at that. It didn't get stuck in the Suez Canal. We know that for a fact.
Yes.
17 of the last 19 didn't play last year because of COVID. But what's your sense of what's going to happen Saturday?
My sense is going to be, of course, it's going to be a Buckeye victory. I do believe that our offense will be just too much for this defense. And I think the one great thing with, regardless of when Ohio State has played, I've had the ability to at least watch, I want to watch Michigan to understand. I think that the Hutchinson kid's great off the edge. The other defensive end, 55, is a great player.
Yeah.
Can't say his name. I apologize for that, but they're good at what they do. And I think also it's the Buckeye fans have gotten so upset when Michigan would lose the game or two just prior to Ohio State to kind of diminish our win over them. And they've done everything they could, minus, one little dust up against Michigan State to set the table for this matchup. 2 versus 4, whatever it may be, come Tuesday night, 2 versus 5, 3 versus 5, whatever it is.
But everything's on the line,
Yeah, everything's on the line. So I think we're going to overwhelm them offensively, I think, but this game will be closer than a lot of people think for probably 3 quarters. And then it's going to be a play or two by our offense. And I would say, I'll always count on one big stop by our defense. Could be a turnover. Could be, Harbaugh in plus territory wants to get risky and go for it. We make the stop, and then a quick strike of our offense kind of puts the game out of reach. So I'm very confident. I think coming off of this last week's game with, and a lot of it has to do with, again, I keep going back to Haskell Garrett's guarantee, because what Walker III does and what they do in the ground game, I watched, the comeback against Michigan and winning that football game. Yeah. And for him to make that guarantee, there was something in his heart. You don't just say that to say that. A great work of practice, a great game plan is what allows him, and extreme confidence allows him to go on that stage, at the Skull Session and say what he said and then deliver it.
Yeah.
And I think Michigan wants to run the football. They want to blood your nose. They want to play action. They want to throw the football down the field, but it's running the football and controlling the game, which they've done very well, except when it, in that comeback against Michigan State. And so if we can step up and have a great plan and our boys are in to execute defensively, I think that our offense will be too much and we come out victorious.
Matt Wilhelm, too bad you don't have an opinion on anything, man. Wow. What? I bet a survey taker has their I bet they go, wow, why did I call this guy anyway?
I know.
Hey, Matt,
deny the survey because it's going to cost me 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, boy, I appreciate you, my man. You know that.
My pleasure, brother.
And have a nice Thanksgiving, man. You and your family, and enjoy
Thank you so
enjoy
much.
Northern Maine, man. That's one of the great places. Been there a few times, and it's one of the great places on earth, isn't it?
It is. It's God's country up here. And Tim, thank you, of course, always for having me. Go Bucks, beat the team up north, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Boy, Austin, I had Matt Wilhelm on to talk about the game and to talk about the defensive improvements. But when he got on the Ohio State offense, man, you could see him perk up even more. He called it, it's must-see TV anymore. Wow, what a statement. That's going to be in my story about it this week too. But I got to steal that one, right? But he's right about that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is peak Seinfeld, Friends era NBC Thursday nights. I mean, and maybe better. I mean, if you took all of the greatest NBC sitcoms and put them on one night, then you'd be dealing with must-see TV in its original form or best form. I mean, LSU was really special 2 years ago, and everybody said, well, this is the greatest offense in college football history. Alabama really special last year, no question about that. They were pretty well represented at that Heisman Trophy presentation for a reason.
Yep.
And we saw the display in South Florida. Great, maybe greatest offense of all time again, they say. Well, Ohio State has watched that, and then they've taken it, I think, to an even higher level than those two. Ohio State has certainly never seen anything quite like this. I would say that the Big Ten hasn't either, and I think that they're going to have to finish the deal Saturday, potentially a week from Saturday, and then after that, because those two teams that I mentioned won the national championship. But Ohio State is in that conversation if they handle the business as just a truly, truly unstoppable offense that, that's why I think they will win 4 more games this season. But I know their only focus, as we talk about it on this show, is the one on Saturday.
Exactly. It better be, because then you don't play 4 more. I mean, you don't play three more after that. You get to go to maybe a nice bowl game with some good parting gifts.
Get one more. Like that's the balance. 4 or 2. Like
4 or 2. Exactly.
If you're a senior, you're you're definitely thinking about that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the fans are, et cetera. But you know what? Speaking of that, the team that wants to spoil the party, obviously, and the team that can do exactly what we just talked about, play 3 more games after the game on Saturday, is Michigan. Surprisingly, in some people's minds, the way Jim Harbaugh has turned this thing around from last year's real embarrassment during the COVID struggle. Definitely Michigan didn't handle it anywhere near the way Ohio State did. But now here they sit. They're 10-1. They've got a chance to beat Ohio State and move on to the Big Ten championship game for the first time, as you delineated earlier. Instead of going to Paris or South Africa or whatever, they might get to finally go to Indianapolis. But without further ado, let's go. What?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is, because it's indoors.
It's beautiful December.
But without further ado, let's get to my conversation with John Bacon. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, yep, that aroma is correct. You smell bacon frying. John Bacon joins the Tim May podcast again. John Bacon, welcome back.
Tim May, always a pleasure despite your efforts. Just kidding.
There you go, brother.
Tim and I go back, what, 15, 20 years? Maybe more.
At least. I don't know how many times I've bought you pizza. No, I'm just joking, man. We've got some great times at those Big Ten meetings, et cetera, mainly shooting the you-know-what and having a beer or two and a slice or two. And I've always enjoyed your company, man. I hope it's vice versa.
Amazingly, it is on both sides. How about that? Tim May is one of my favorites in the business. Smart, funny, on point, tells the truth. Can't beat that.
Yeah. By the way, you're very handsome.
Thank you very much.
I finally told a lie. I'm messing with you, man. By the way, we're going to talk about your latest book, Let Them Lead, in a little while, because I think it's extremely interesting. And you're one of those great authors out there that I pretty much read everything you write, because, I find it fascinating. Number one, the research you put into things and how you bring them to life. And there's a little plug already, but Black Friday's coming, man, and you got to get those books sold when you can, right? I got Rex Kern coming on later next month to talk about his new book. But boy, you and Rex Kern kind of look alike. What's up with that?
Yeah, and one of us is an All-American quarterback.
Hey, by the way, I had him on one time, and he had a 10 jersey up behind him. I said, "Why have you got Art Schleister's jersey hanging up on your wall?" But hey,
sure, that was well received, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I digress. Hey, I might have said Troy Smith. I get those anecdotes mixed up. You know how it goes, man. Like Woody, who said 3 things can happen when you throw the ball and 2 of them are bad. Who said it first, Darrell Royal or Woody Hayes?
I think Woody.
I remember I asked Darrell Royal about it one time, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what." He goes, "I never heard those words like that until they came out of my mouth." So, that's one way of putting it. Hey, John, let's get straight to the facts here. The reason you're on, and the reason people know you through my podcast too, is you are quite the Michigan file when it comes to Michigan football. Well, Michigan sports in general, Michigan football in particular. And have we, on the eve of a game that's finally, again, going to decide something serious? I mean, the winner goes to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. The winner of the 117th renewal of this incredible series, this rivalry. The winner goes to Indianapolis, and it's kind of what it used to be all about, except it was a whole conference way back when, if you remember correctly. But is Michigan football back? I mean, give us a quick synopsis.
Boy, simple question, not a simple answer. I would say, look, when you're 10-1 compared to being 2-4 last year, Michigan was, and of course, 2019 was kind of a throwback by Michigan standards. So I would say it is. Now, the diehards will tell you, and I think the national media will tell you the same thing. It's not fully back until they actually beat Ohio State. They've not won a Big Ten title since 2004, I think. I mean, that's 17 years. It's the longest drought in program history, including the 10 years Michigan left the conference from 2007 to 1917, during which time Ohio State entered the contest. So that's how far you got to go back. That's how bad it has been for Michigan. But you're not going to fire a guy at 10-1. I know that.
Yeah. obviously Jim Harbaugh took some cuts in pay, et cetera, in that contract that you were talking about on this program a year ago, about they were renewing things. You had your finger on the pulse of that. And I don't know, explain to people where he sits contractually, because sometimes it's hard to kind of keep up with what were the I don't know, prerequisites there? What were the stipulations? What were the requirements? Go ahead.
Well, this time last year, Harbaugh had one more year left in his contract, his second extension, basically. And that was, $8-9 million a year, good pile of money, most of it guaranteed, big buyout, all that stuff. And Ward Manuel, the AD, basically held the cards last year when you finished 2-4, and the natives are getting restless, to say the least. So he reworked the contract quite severely, frankly. And I thought a move towards sanity generally for college football, which is short-lived, as we know, based on recent offers and all that. But more or less, in a nutshell, cut the base salary in half, from about $8 million to about $4 million, added a bunch of incentives so we can get back to $8 million if you beat Ohio State, if they win the Big Ten title, the division, and so on and so forth, and get to the playoffs. All that can be back and then some. Also, greatly reduced the buyout. So it became basically an at-will contract. I mean, $4 million buyout sounds like a lot to you and me, but not to Ed Orgeron, obviously. So, so basically, it was a do-or-die contract. Basically, every year it's set up. Now that he's done pretty well this year, and depending on Saturday's outcome, he's bound to rework that with Ward Manuel at some point to guarantee recruitment success. Yeah. You need that stability, as you well know, that promise of it. But that was a do-or-die year, and the gutsiest move Harbaugh made in the offseason, not talked about too often, he swapped out 6 of his 10 assistant coaches. That is a big boy move right there. That is throwing all your chips in, and it has worked out, I would have to say, amazingly well, not only in terms of results, but also in terms of rapport with the players. These younger coaches are much more connected than the previous coaches were to the players, and the enthusiasm level, the energy level is much higher. They played well in pretty much every game this year, including the loss to Michigan State, where they outgained them 550 to 390. Yeah. So you got to say that bet has worked. Now, all that still comes down, my friend, to a certain game on a Saturday. If he wins that game, every sin in the world, if there are sins, is absolved. The previous 6 years, the previous 6 losses to Ohio State, all that does not matter anymore. If you lose that game badly, then all those ghosts come out of the closet. You've got the Michigan State loss, the Ohio State loss. I think the sweet spot for Jim is the team has got to compete through the fourth quarter. It's got to be, a 1-touchdown game, basically. If it's that, even if they lose, they'll still probably go to the Rose Bowl as the second team out of the Big Ten. Ohio State, of course, will be a playoff team at that point. Yeah. That will calm down a lot of people. 10% will still be unhappy, but that's always the case. Yeah. So what I've taken from all of that and ground it down, like fine pepper, is this is the absolution bowl for Jim Harbaugh. Do I have that right? I think that's exactly right. He's got a lot more to gain than to lose. I will say that this time around. That's crazy. That is crazy, though, how so much can ride on one game, isn't it, John? That's been crazy for 100 years, Tim. And think about this. I mean, back to Bo and Woody and you name it. What's great about college football is you get one whack at this thing. There's no redos. You don't play them again in the tournament or the playoffs or anything else. This is it. And whoever loses that game has got to think about it for a year. It's already true of Michigan State. It's true of Ohio State, Oregon, of course, but probably more painful for the Michigan State game. You don't get them again for a year. So the bragging rights at Ohio State have been pretty much the entire century, and it's no longer a young century. Yeah, 17-2 over the last 19 games. That's crazy. By the way, who would have taken that bet? I wouldn't have. No, I wouldn't have either, to be honest with you. There's no way. No. It's been a stunning and nothing like it in the history of the rivalry. So this will always be the golden era for the rivalry for Ohio State. And you know what, though? It's funny because you and I got into the debate for a big-time retailer last year about this time when we thought there was going to be a game, but there wasn't because of the COVID situation. Ended up with the Michigan team, but what a crazy year. But, even during those tough times in the John Cooper era, 2-10-1, Ohio State went over John Cooper's 13 years. There were some great games in there, that just happened to fall one way or the other, mainly the other, as far as Ohio State fans were concerned. Sure. And there have been some great games over the last 19, the previous 19 going into this year's game.
that have fallen one way or the other, just happen to follow Ohio State's way. It's not like it's not still a pretty good rivalry based on those things, but it does finally come down to the W and the L. And I'm not sure that's not selling the thing short a little bit.
I think that's a fair point. Look, John Cooper, poor guy, in my opinion. He was not a good coach. He was a phenomenal coach, and his teams are top 5 almost every year during that time of the season, of course. And most of those games were knockdown, drag-out fights that, as usual, play either way, and there you go. Including 97, when Michigan was the national champs, that game was a close game. And Ohio State almost ruined all their dreams. So poor John Cooper on that one. But as far as the 17-2 goes, I might even argue, how about this crazy approach? It might be a testament to the health and the vigor of this rivalry that it can be 17-2 and still matter. Yeah. Name me another one. If Oklahoma State was like this, Iowa State, you wouldn't watch it. And this game still draws national attention every year, pretty much no matter what. Now, this year, of course, you got 2 top 6 teams. So now it matters a hell of a lot. Yeah. This thing pretty much, I can recall seasons 2013. A bad Michigan team, Brady Hoke's 3rd year, came down to the last play. Yep. And it can still happen that way. So my guess is one of 2 things is going to happen this time around. Ohio State blows up Michigan, a la Michigan State, maybe not that badly. That was something, by the way. That was drawn and quartered. That was incredible. Or a dogfight. I don't see Michigan blowing out Ohio State a la Tishimanga Biakabatuka, 95. Yeah. I think it's going to be a dogfight and probably a coin toss at the end, basically.
But you know what? You just brought up a good point, though, that I keep making about this college football season. Just when you think you figured it out, man, weird stuff happens. Utah decimated Oregon the other night, right on down the line, there have been these, like Texas A&M beats Alabama. Texas A&M hadn't beaten anybody of consequence since then, they lose, to what was it, to Ole Miss, and had already lost to Mississippi State, the 2 Egg Bowl combatants, A&M didn't beat either one of them. But it's funny because, like you just said, Auburn, Alabama, the only thing it matters about is whether Alabama continues its run to a possible another college football playoff berth, because if Auburn was to upset Alabama is still in the Southeastern Conference Championship game. And this is a game for all the marbles on Saturday in Ann Arbor. And even right now, it's kind of giving me chills just thinking about, finally, and it's meant something every year. Don't get me wrong. It's meant something like this several times in the last many years. But with so much on the line for Ohio State and so much pride on the line for Michigan, plus if Michigan wins out, Michigan goes to the college football playoff. Don't you agree?
You'd have to think so. Gee, especially when, the playoff committee is getting a lot of heat from the perceived SEC bias. Now, part of that's because they have at least 2 great teams every year that I think are worthy of it. That's part of the deal. Yeah. But Ohio State won the Big Ten, so had a great team and did not get to the playoff a few years ago. And I thought that was an oversight, obviously. So my guess is whoever wins the Big Ten, unless it's 3 lost to Wisconsin, whatever, is going to get a chance to. Michigan, Ohio State, one of those 2 is going to get there, and they both have marquee value. You'll get eyes on TV sets. You'll pack the place. They all travel well. The difference is this: if Michigan goes to the Rose Bowl, everybody will be ecstatic in Ann Arbor. If Ohio State goes, how ticked off are they going to be? Yeah. The standards there are so high right now that will not do it for Ryan Day.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this now as we head into this. You're a great observer of the scene, so to speak. How phenomenal is it what Ohio State has done over the last basic decade? But, in essence, they're going for a 5th straight Big Ten championship in what I call the playoff era, the championship game era. For a guy who observes it from above the whatever that line is, it divided Toledo from Michigan. Was that 94.5? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. That little line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
How stunning is that, what Ohio State has done the previous 4 years and right now has a chance to do a 5th straight year?
I think that you hit the nail on the head, that it's not fully appreciated, because I think the last time it was done was Michigan from Bo to Moeller, 88, 89, 91, 92. There's 5 in there.
Yeah, 90. I think that's right. I think you're right.
But keep in mind, you had a lot more scholarships. I think you had more scholarships then. You had no transfer rules. The parity that exists now in college football means it's extremely difficult to be on top for very long. For Ohio State to do that, and now the last 5 years, those are all Harbaugh. Harbaugh has had good teams. 2016, 2018, now 2021. Those are 3 teams that have had as good a chance to beat Ohio State as anybody. If Ryan Day picks up from Urban Meyer, does the same thing, then hats off. Because those 5 Big Ten titles are as impressive as anything, in my opinion, that Fielding Yost would have done in the 1905 before the Buckeyes were part of the conference. It's extremely difficult. And it's not just Michigan. You got to play Penn State, and some years Michigan State is up. Penn State's almost always competitive. Half the time you get Wisconsin, either regular season or in the title game, of course. Yep. Those are 3 big boy teams right there. You got to play every time out. This is not the Big 2 and the Little 8. So for Ryan Dayton, what's also stunning to me, looking at it from Ann Arbor, is from Tressel to Urban Meyer to Ryan Day, they have not missed a beat. And you're saying the last 5 years, hell, the last 21 years, since Jim Tressel got up there at the basketball game and said, you're going to be proud of us, in 310 days? Is the number right?
Something like that.
Something like that in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
That is the modern era. There's your line right there, and it's not stopped.
Yeah. 2001 and onward. I think that would be the battle cry for Ohio State right now. If Ryan Day wins, if Ryan Day pulls this off, 3 of those 5 in a row will be his. Crazy. Right. Like you just said, the baton was passed. And if anything, this relay team is running faster now than it was then. I mean, if that's an analogy you can use.
No let up.
What impresses you most about this Ohio State team? Obviously, you got to see the slaughter in the shoe the other day. I mean, I expected Ohio State to win handily. Mm-hmm. Just like the previous week, I expected Ohio State to win handily over Purdue, but not like they did. I mean, 28-point win. Like a lot of people Ohio State fans were griping because Purdue scored 31. I go, you know what? If it had been 38-10, that would have been a hell of a victory. And you'd been going, wow, what a dominating win, But 28 points is 28 points. But 56-7 over the number 7 team in the college football playoff rankings, a team that beat Michigan, came from behind 16 points down, and handed the ball to Kenneth Walker III. And boom, he brought him back, and for the most part. And the other day, he had like 24 yards rushing on something like 6 carries. They made him a non-factor. But I guess what has impressed you about this team? Obviously the offense, but what about the offense that impresses you?
Well, one thing is you're selling them short, incredibly. That 56-7, hell, forget that. 49-0 at the half. They got the ball. They only scored touchdowns when they had the ball. That was the only time they scored touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're averaging like 5 plays per drive. That's not a drive. That's just jamming it down your throat.
Yeah.
It was truly impressive. It was drawn and quartered, a dismemberment. And that's a 9-1. It was a 9-1 Michigan State team. So what impressed me the most overall, first of all, C.J. Stroud, Cade McNamara has played his heart out. He's done his best. I think that is, in some ways, the first quarterback they've really developed under Harbaugh at Michigan. But he's no C.J. Stroud, and that's the difference, I think, on Saturday. That's going to be the margin. Even at his best, he can't do what Stroud does. So that being the case, that impresses me, obviously. But what really impresses me, actually, is how that Buckeye team has grown during this season. From the stumbles early on at Oregon, they had a few, shaky game at Nebraska. Man, by November, they're hitting on all cylinders. That is coaching. The team has been developed. They know exactly what they're doing. Michigan is going to hit them at their all-time peak. So, and Michigan's also peaking right now, so that's a good thing too for Michigan. But not like not like Ohio State is. So, what impressed me the most is this team has gotten better every month.
Yeah, and like I pointed out, the Kenneth Walker III stats. This run defense was had big time troubles against Minnesota till that great running back went out. With the season-ending injury. And then, of course, against Oregon ran basically the same play 3 times around left end for a touchdown, ran a ball straight up the gut, started the second half, long touchdown run. This defense has gotten so much better against the run, but so much better overall. Still gives up a play here and there, but that's been as big a transformation as anywhere in the country, the way that unit has improved. I think you've even witnessed that, right?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, the old cliche is true. Back to Woody Hayes, you win titles with defense. The offense is impressive. It's the 0 at the halftime. Michigan State was getting 0 traction at that point. And Walker, I've seen him enough this fall, Lord knows. That guy's the real deal. Absolutely. And he's still a candidate, I think, a shortlist candidate for the Heisman. I don't know if he's going to win it or not. But if he doesn't win it, you can thank the Buckeyes, because the Buckeyes are the only team that really shut him down. And knowing that he's coming. So that team right now is playing great. Seems to have, from what I can tell, a very good rapport with Ryan Day. He's got his team where he wants them. They're playing the best ball at the right time. And I guarantee you this, if they beat Michigan, they're smoking Wisconsin. They're smoking whoever's on that side.
Wow.
I see that as a speed bump on the way to bigger things.
Wow. I wonder what smoked badger tastes like.
Not good.
Yeah, it can't be good. It's got to be gamey, right? Right.
It's also furry.
You touched on it, though. I wanted to ask you about this real quick. Cade McNamara, Harbaugh still insists on getting J.J. McCarthy in those games and stuff, which cost him, I thought, against Michigan State. Big time turnover. Big time turnovers. What am I talking about? But he's going to probably keep doing that, right? Because, damned with the rest of you people. This is my idea and stuff. But Cade McNamara, I agree, has come along. What gives them their best shot offensively, or what do you see gives them their best shot offensively Saturday, John? I'm talking about the Wolverines.
I do think that, you're right about the Michigan State game, of course, when J.J. McCarthy comes in, fumbles a snap. I, of course, blasted about that on Twitter, only to find out that, in fact, Cade McNamara was in the medical tent.
Gotcha.
So they had to put him out there.
Gotcha.
And apparently also the fumble responsibility was Blake Corum's. It was not a mesh. Blake Corum was supposed to get the ball, and that came out later on that basically he blew it. Nonetheless.
Let me interrupt though. But the common denominator though was another quarterback in there at crunch time. Go ahead now.
Yeah, and maybe a mistake, that Cade McNamara would not have made. Look, the guy's not lights out, but he does not throw interceptions. He does not fumble the ball. That's where his strength is. But honestly, to beat Ohio State, I'm convinced that throughout the year, Michigan has thrown in J.J. McCarthy, not necessarily for Purdue or Nebraska or whatever. They threw him in there because I don't think they can beat Ohio State with McNamara alone. You can certainly beat Michigan with anybody. With C.J. Stroud alone, that guy's as good as they get, in my view. And there's a lot to back that up, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't think Cade alone, they have to keep the Buckeyes guessing. They have to make them watch more film, change the defensive packages, whatever else, because they're two very different quarterbacks. I think they need that wow factor just to have a shot, because Cade's game at its best, I don't think can beat the Buckeyes at their best.
Yeah. It's interesting too, though. Why pull that out of your back pocket in the 12th game of the year? Why not work on it some? Make sure this man has some playing experience, because you don't want him going in cold against an Ohio State team in the game that can win it all for you, right? I mean, that's actually pretty good coaching, right?
Hey, there you go. As Devin Gardner said, no one knows how big that stage is until you're on it, and then it's too late.
Yeah,
and that is the Michigan-Ohio State game right there. It's not an entry-level position. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Well, Dwayne Haskins Jr. found it to be, but that's another story. That's a story from the past.
I'll tell you what.
A horror story for Michigan from the past. I'm sorry.
When you win a national title with your third quarterback, you got my attention.
Yeah, exactly. Heck, Cardale Jones, that was another one. But anyway, we digress. Last couple things. Aiden Hutchinson and that group we all remember the revenge tour back in whenever that was with
Chase Winovich.
Yeah, Chase Winovich. Nobody's really said that out loud this year and stuff, but
and it shouldn't.
Exactly. Until you finished it, right? That was the revenge tour. Does this defense have what it takes to match up with Ohio State, you think, or to at least get some stuff done?
I would say they've got enough pieces that they could. I also think that, look, what Ohio State exploited, Michigan failed to against Michigan State. Yeah. They're dead last in passing defense, and that's before the game. I can't imagine they moved up afterwards.
No.
So when you're 130th out of 130, that is not good. Michigan should have been tearing those guys apart and failed to. Cade overthrowing wide open receivers, things like that. So I think Ohio State's defense is the better defense right now. But I think that Michigan with 3 players, Ojabo, you mentioned, of course, Aiden Hutchinson and Dax Hill, defensive back, and they're starting to give him a lot more latitude. He had a blocked pass, coming in on the blitz, basically, from way back. Those 3 guys have got to have killer games. The linebacker core is, frankly, average. So if they start getting to those guys, you never know what's going to happen. So if these 3 or 4 players can cover, then Michigan's in the game. And if Ryan Day does to Michigan what they did to Michigan State, then he will find their weaknesses. They have them on defense. And the corners and the linebackers can be picked. So we'll see if they can get to them.
Hey, I got to ask a couple of the quickies. Of the 3 Ohio State.
Dude, I'm not charging you. Go right ahead.
Okay. Of the 3 Ohio State receivers, Chris Olave just set the school career touchdown receiving record, going past David Boston with 35. Earlier in the year against Nebraska, Jackson Smith and Jigba set the single game reception record for Ohio State with 15 against, breaking another David Boston record. Poor David. It's been a tough month for David Boston in the record books. And then Garrett Wilson had 4 touchdowns in the Purdue game, 1 rushing and 3 receiving in all kinds of manner. Have you ever seen 3 receivers of that magnitude on the same team, all playing, all getting their shots, all going to be probably 1,000-yard receivers? Ohio State already has a 1,000-yard running back, already has a 3,000-yard passer, but all 3 of those guys are probably going to be 1,000-yard receivers when it's said and done. I keep telling everybody, man, or love Ohio State, take pictures of this team, man. You may never see something like this again, especially from an offensive standpoint. They're still going to have really good players, but it's crazy the talent they've got at wide receiver. Agreed?
It's crazier than crazy, and I was shocked to find the stat they put up there during the Ohio State Michigan State game that they've not had a 1,000-yard receiver since Chris Carter's. Crazy like that, or maybe Boston.
Yeah.
There've been very few.
It's been a while, yeah.
Now, granted, Woody Hayes is not exactly known for slinging the ball around, so fair enough, he didn't have to pass. But to have 3 like that is, even in the modern era, like I said, you're going back to Darryl Boston. It's crazy. David Boston is crazy. And that's the problem. You circle the problem Michigan has. The cornerbacks, Dax Hill is great, defensive back. Cornerbacks are going to find out. But you got 3 guys going out there. You can't double all 3. I know that.
Yeah.
So someone's going to be available. If Stroud picks up who's available, you just circled the Achilles heel. That's the thing that can bring Michigan down. And if there's going to be a slaughter, that's why.
By the way, I just had flashback of watching David Boston and Charles Woodson go at each other down that left sideline. Remember that 97 game? Oh my God.
It was like 2 Rams in the mountain going at it, and then Marcus Ray from Columbus, of course, had a chance to flip Boston in that game. But yes, for all the great photo pyrogenics, that was still a damn close game.
Oh yeah. Stanley Jackson, couple passes he wishes he had back to this day. I guarantee it, that would have upset the last Michigan national championship train. But unfortunately, as they said in Austin Powers, that train has sailed. Hey, tell me about one other thing. Then I want to promote your little book there. Let them lead. How many have you written now? About 400 books.
Ballpark.
Yeah,
I lost track myself.
Yeah,
400 or 12 maybe, but there.
Yeah, but pretty close to one of those numbers.
One of those numbers.
Let's circle back to this one thing. Has Jim Harbaugh always gotten it about the game, but has he had trouble conveying it to the players? Or do you think, like I think, every year is another referendum, but what happened before isn't necessarily, obviously, Ohio State's 17-2 over the last 19. What happened those previous 20 years, went to the wayside in the series. But what do you see that's different, I guess, about this team, other than the young coaching staff and Michigan being 10-1 and ranked number 6, or probably ranked at least number 5 in the country by the college football playoff by the time this comes out, but the new poll comes out. But what do you see that tells you that they get it, for want of another term? Because that was always the gripe about the John Cooper teams, that he couldn't figure out a way to get the team to get it, which I didn't buy into in the least. But the record speaks for itself.
Right. I think that a few things. One, Harbaugh lived in Ann Arbor since third grade. I guarantee you he got it. And third grade from him was 73, the midpoint of the Bo-Woody Wars.
Yeah.
His dad's a coach on the team. They're down there during practice. I'm very confident Jim has got it in his bones what this game means. And, of course, he's the one who called the famous guarantee in 86, which
I
is
was
not
there,
advised.
man. I was 10 feet from him, but go
There
ahead.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Not advised, is it? But no, he definitely gets it. But I think you hit the nail on the head about conveying it. It's not just you get it. And John Cooper's an outsider. I mean, he's coaching Arizona State before that. He was not raised in this tradition. Urban Meyer certainly was, from Ashtabula, Ohio. So he certainly got it. Jim gets it.
Yeah.
But you got to communicate it. And in some ways, I think it parallels. Jim was hot and heavy in 2015, 2016, on the sidelines, getting his penalty, of course, for throwing his clipboard and whatnot down in the horseshoe. And he went underground in 2017, 18, 19, 20. And now you see him bubbling back up. You see more passion on the sidelines, not quite as intense as he was in 2015 or 2016, but not nearly as dormant as he was the previous 4 years. So I think his emotions generally have come back. They've now, in the weight room, like Ohio State has always had, a countdown to the Ohio State game. They've re-emphasized it. And you might as well, because the world's going to emphasize it anyway. The damn thing's coming. You can't act like it's not important. You can't act like it's another game. It never was and never will be. So I think it's a matter of communicating that and admitting it, and his personality kind of coming back in the process. But you also hit upon another issue that does affect this team. And that is that if you're playing on the Red Sox in 2002, it's not your fault that they've not won the damn thing since 1918, but you're going to hear about it and you're going to feel it. And you're a Chicago Cub or you're a Boston Red Sox, not your fault, but it is your burden. And that's what's happened to Michigan now. And I go back to Bo and the Rose Bowl, of course. He lost his first 7 bowl games, including 5 Rose Bowls. They finally won one. And after that, he was 5-5 the last decade. No one ever talks about that because they can't believe it. So he was actually just fine. They need to win one. And what's happened to this team is this game is not a monkey. It's a gorilla on their backs. It weighs way too heavily on them. In a normal year, 2013, maybe Devin Gardner makes that play. Maybe they call a better play. That was the problem that time, I think. 2016, you're down to this, you're down to that. They got to win one. And if they do win one, most Buckeye fans I've talked to admit this, it'd make the rivalry healthier. Chris Spielman has said that Michigan has not been upholding their end of the deal. It's supposed to be a tug of war. It's supposed to be a back and forth. Now, no Buckeye ever wants to lose this particular year's game. I understand that. But they understand that for the health of it, it needs to be more balanced, it needs to be more back and forth. So they wouldn't like it, but it'd be good for the rivalry if Michigan won this Saturday. So yeah, Buckeyes, come on, take the high road. Think about the bigger picture. That's all we're asking.
All I know is the last 20 years, the value of gold pants has dwindled.
The market has flooded with gold pants.
The market has been flooded with gold pants. I was going to make some kind of real joke that would make Ohio State fans mad there, but I'm not going to, man, because I got Thanksgiving in my heart. You know what I mean? I mean, this is Thanksgiving week and big game week and whatever.
By the way, that's another problem.
Yeah.
That's another problem for Michigan, though. The game, of course, used to always be the Saturday before Thanksgiving, almost always.
Yes.
And in the money era, they moved it to that Saturday after Thanksgiving. Half of Michigan students, the highest of any state university, half of them come from out of state. Guess what? They go home. They go home to California and New York and Florida, you name it. They're not going to be in town. So you're going to see a lot of red. As long as that's the setup. They're going to sell their tickets on StubHub, and Buckeye fans are going to snap them up. Yeah. So there'll be plenty of red in the stadium this Saturday.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, how things change for the good, for the good of the conference. Yeah, which is more money in my pocket so that you can pay coaches not to coach anymore. Things like that. I mean, we're really well used stuff. Hey, the book behind you there, Let Them Lead. Give people a little idea, especially if they're Christmas shopping on Black Friday, where they can find that. But what's that all about, my man?
Well, first of all, shockingly, I realized the color scheme is basically scarlet and gray. That's a mistake.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
How about that? There you go, Buckeye fans.
Hey, as I always like to say, Tiger Woods always wears scarlet. He calls it red. He always wears scarlet shirt on Sundays. Now, go ahead.
Blood red on Sundays, I believe, yes. So Let Them Lead, unexpected lessons in leadership from America's worst high school hockey team. Little known fact, Tim, I actually coached this team in 2000 to 04. The worst team in America, 0-22-3. Ranked dead last out of 1,000 teams nationwide. Coached by the worst player in school history, Ann Arbor Huron High School we're talking about. I still hold the record for the most games in a Huron uniform, 86, with the fewest goals, 0. and I played right wing. That's not good, Tim. So worst team in America, worst coach, worst player in school history. But in 3 years, we're the best team in school history and in the top 5% nationwide. So how do we do it? We let the players lead. We put them in charge, and it worked. So I got the advice from my mentor at Culver Academies, Al Clark, who gave me a great line. You've got to make it special to play for Huron. And the easiest way to make it special is to make it hard. And that's what the Buckeyes have been doing for way too long in Columbus.
Yeah. I'm not going to let you, even though it was a great wrap up there you just came up with, I'm not going to let you, I want to add one little thing there. What's the coolest part of that book? Where was that moment? Give a little bit of it away here. What was that moment when you saw the change happen?
It was a culture change. It happened before our first game. When we're on the track in Ann Arbor at Ann Arbor Huron, and it's one of these god awful summer days. Rain that morning, sun at night, in the afternoon. 93 degrees. Yeah. Steam was coming off the track. You couldn't see the goalposts at the end of the football field. It was that crazy. And one of the freshmen grumbled a little bit, and my captain turns to him and says, "Hey, you play for Huron, and it's harder over here." And that's when you realize, yes, it's getting in. So that goes on our wall, and the team won 7 games that year, then 16-9-2, and then 17-4-3 our third year, and ranked 53rd in the nation and 4th in the state. So that was a ton of fun turning those guys around. And Herb Brooks was a fan of ours, the Olympic coach. Yeah. Bo was a fan of ours. Red Berenson, the Michigan hockey coach, of course. So I had a lot of high-letter help there, and it was just a lot of fun. And we're all still in touch. They come to my barbecue every summer. Their kids are older than my kid, Tim. So guess what? They give me parenting advice, and I have to take it. So.
Yes, you do. John Bacon, you're fascinating, man. You've always been one more fascinating friends, man. And I truly appreciate you, but I truly appreciate you joining my podcast because you're always enthusiastic about stuff. And I've got to get that book. I hope to get a free copy in the mail maybe in the next 3 days. That's what I'm looking for. You will get it sent off tomorrow, my friend. A gross oversight of yours truly. I will try to read it without breaking the binding and then put it on eBay. You know what I'm saying? Well, tell you what, for you, then I'll just sign it without personalizing it so that we can sell it for $2 more. Go. Hey, you know what that's called? That's called sharpening your skates. That's my analogy. It's my figurative. Hey, John, real quick before you go, what do you think Saturday, man? What happens? Ohio State 35. Do you believe in something being due? Yes, but I don't think it matters because I think it works against you more than it works for you because no guy on that team knows what it's like to beat Ohio State, and that's a problem. So it's not passed down. I'm going, and I'll say it publicly in Ann Arbor, the same score, 35-28, Ohio State over Michigan, which is still, that'll get Michigan into the Rose Bowl, I'm sure of that. And it'll get Ohio State with another win into the CFP playoff, of course. So, but I got it 35-28. I saw the games on Saturday. They both look damn good to me. But Ohio State, holy smokes, all cylinders. Yeah, I've covered this, been around this team for a long time, covered it since 1984. And I've never seen an offense close to this in terms of options, in terms of buttons that C.J. Stroud can push. And the thing about it is I equated him taking over the job as to sliding into this really great race car. He had to learn how to drive it, What does this do? What does this do? He has figured that out, and it's crazy. I mean, we talked about the passing game, but the running game with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams is just as lethal in a lot of respects. And they've got that huge offensive line. It's, it's just hard to see Michigan getting it done this year, but definitely Michigan's much better off than it was this time a year ago. You got to agree with that. And look, they're playing real ball, and I don't see them folding tents. I don't see them collapsing, unlike previous years. I think it's gonna be a battle. But look, the only counter I've got to what you just said, everything you said is true. This Ohio State team, look, maybe Georgia's better than they are, but that's all I'm seeing out there. The game I want to see is probably Ohio State, Georgia. Yeah. So, and I'm probably not alone in that one. Yeah. However, the only counter argument I've got is a bizarre bit of history. 95. Who'd you have? Terry Glenn and Orlando Pace and Eddie George, and the list goes on and on. You had like 5 first-rounders on offense. Yeah. Half your offense was a first-round draft pick, which would probably not happened since, and they lost. Mike Vrabel, Matt Finkes, insane. Yeah. So that's the only real counter argument is history in this game is bizarre. Chimanga Biaka Batuka. I remember it well. You got it. I got a lot of grief from my coworkers at the Dispatch because as we're driving into the game, as we go by the stadium, when we used to get to park next to the stadium way back when, I said, man, I got a funny feeling about today. And Ohio State was pretty heavily favored in that game, if I remember correctly. And
oh yeah, at Michigan,
that little counter handoff to Shimanga Biakabatuka, they never figured it out. Never made the adjustment. It was crazy.
So you're in your bones. You're feeling a vibration before you got out of the car.
I know. I get that sometimes, just because you get things, and all of a sudden you kind of go, wait a minute, something ain't adding up here. You know what I mean? It's football, man. Things like that can happen, right?
I'll see you on Saturday morning. Let me know how you're feeling.
You got it, John.
I will bet accordingly.
I'm hoping to cook some bacon and eggs, man. That's what I'm hoping for. Ladies and gentlemen, John Bacon. Thanks for doing the Tim May podcast again, my man.
My good buddy, Tim May. Always a pleasure, pal. Always a pleasure.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Likewise. You too.
Boy, really appreciate my good friend, John Bacon, man. I always love it when the smell of bacon's in the air, because it means you're going to get some good opinions about things, including his latest book. But I digress, Austin. I tweeted to you on Saturday night. I'm sitting there watching some games. I'd had a little bit of bourbon cream. And I tweeted to you, I said, if they took Ohio State out of the Big Ten this year, it would be a very nice looking conference. It'd be, wow, competitive as hell from top to bottom, teams 1 through 13. Michigan would probably be on top of that right now, although the way Wisconsin's playing, look out. But I think even the way, as John Bacon described, watching that Ohio State game against Michigan State, 56-7, a team that Michigan had led by 16 late in that game, and watched Michigan State come back and win that game. You just juxtapose those two games and you go, wow, those were two really good teams going at each other. But this team just beat one of those two teams 56-7. You got to be sitting there going, oh my goodness, what are you walking into on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I think your language was a little bit stronger on Saturday, but your point, I hadn't really, thought about it that way, because it's such a, it's obviously a hypothetical, but the Michigan State game would be viewed as an all-time classic, settled the East and went back and forth in a crazy comeback. And instead it's just that was a game that happened a month ago and doesn't have that great of a bearing on anything, because neither one was going to beat Ohio State, right? Obviously Saturday can happen, but we're saying Ohio State's not in this. And as opposed to, well, now you get to see, these two really great, the top two rush offenses in the country, or in the Big Ten, Wisconsin and Michigan, playing in Indianapolis. And instead of that, you just have, Ohio State's going to beat Wisconsin again. Every other year, it's on a schedule. Yeah, it's Wisconsin's turn. Ohio State has just changed everything. It's a little bit of the, affliction that has set in when you're evaluating Ohio State now, which you can't do it to the rest of the Big Ten. And you're always saying, well, what does this mean if they play against Alabama this week? Or what would have happened if they played Georgia this week? And it's always looking at those other teams. The same thing that is true for that we have said a couple times, and you did on Saturday in Rapid Reaction, that you're probably missing something that's really special if your eyes are focused on something that is a hypothetical. The same sort of thing where Ohio State's attention outside of the Woody, that it goes to the SEC, creates a problem for the rest of the Big Ten, where you might have, Michigan State had a pretty special season. It was a massive comeback, a turnaround by Mel Tucker. Nobody really saw it coming. They were projected in the bottom of the Big Ten East. And, they're in position to still go to a much better bowl game. Any bowl game would have been a victory for them. They're going to go to a nice one. That feels pretty good, except, you got measured against Ohio State and you got beat by 49 points. That impacts everybody else. So Ohio State has just so dramatically changed the conversation within the league, within the national conversation. Obviously the playoff plays a part in that as well, but it really just changes everything about the way you're evaluating it, because Penn State, James Franklin's thinking he's probably reached his ceiling at Penn State. They may stupidly give him another contract extension 1 year after giving him one. How's he going to do it? He beat Ohio State one time and got a Big Ten title. It's doesn't think he can ever do it again. It seems without a ton of other help and support and things going his way, that changes the way he views his own career. That part is crazy. As you said, that this golden era of Ohio State football, the impact it has on everybody else in this league.
Yeah, it is crazy. Hey, let's get on with it here.
All right, let's do it.
No, I liked everything you said right there, as usual. Is it as usual or per usual? But same thing. Just what you just said a while ago about this offense, though. I'm just thinking back. I just had like 10 plays while you were talking, 10 plays from Saturday just roll through my brain, about if A, then B, if C, then D, and I just think about the remarkable progress that we've seen CJ Stroud make over not just from game 1 to game 11, but from game 5 to game 11. And, it's so cool because this is exactly what we were talking about after the Minnesota game. You and I, the people who were, I'm not patting myself on the back because, anything can happen on Saturday. As you just said, you always have to throw that rejoinder in there. But ladies and gentlemen, way back, 11 weeks ago, give the young man time. He threw for 484 yards against Oregon, clearly, but he could have played better in crunch time in that game as the offense could have, without a doubt, But my point is, what you're seeing now compared to then and how well they actually still played offensively, but now there's almost this feeling of unstoppability. Is that a correct term?
Yeah, I love it.
Of unstoppable. I guess if you're unstoppable, you have unstoppability going for you. So yeah, I'm correct on that. But this sense of unstoppability for this offense was on full display the last 2 weeks. Purdue had the number 16 team in the country in red zone defense and in scoring defense. Michigan State had the worst pass defense in the country, but there were a lot of reasons for that, we were told. Well, one of the reasons is they're not very good, on pass defense. But like we talked about, why run through a brick wall when you could throw over and around the brick wall? And it is a wall in the middle of a big old open area, So, kind of remind me of Norman Schwarzkopf, and way back when against the defenses that the Rock had thrown up in Kuwait. There, I just made one war analogy. Why go through it when you can go around and over it? And but Austin, I've never seen an Ohio State offense this prolific and this potent. And I've said that for a long time now, but with the quarterback now running it, like I said, he had to get used to where all the buttons were in this ridiculous sports car he got put in the seat of. Kind of reminds me of a Formula One driver, a rookie. By the end of the year, unless he stinks, he's going to be out there at the top, at the front of the pack if he's got the best car to drive, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing with CJ Stroud, a very talented driver driving this ridiculous sports car.
Yeah, I like that unstoppability word that you've coined there. I've sort of taken to just calling the Ohio State offense inevitable. I mean, there have been teams that have had success, and we saw them struggle against Penn State and Nebraska and go in their rut. But a lot of that, as I said, when it happened was because of mistakes, because of self-inflicted wounds and penalties that Ohio State was, causing themselves. Like, I just think of them, like Thanos when he's got this Infinity Gauntlet and all the stones. Like he has all the power. Like he has to decide not to use it for somebody to survive. And maybe that's too much hyperbole, but I mean, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Travion Henderson, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Thayer Munford, Luke Whippler, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, who actually calls himself or gets called Big Thanos. I mean, Jeremy at his best. Like, I mean, I don't know how you could collect more talent than that. Yeah. And it allows Ohio State to move the football any way that it wants to. And yes, they have not played perfect in every game. No one ever does. And it's a long season. And a lot of, as you said with CJ Stroud, he's doing this for the first time and he's 18, 19 years old. Well, anybody at that age going to maybe get a few hiccups along the way, whether they're a football player or just a college journalist or whatever. Like, you're not going to be that consistent at that age. But as you said, once you got to week 5 and 6, this is a conversation that you and I also had about Dwayne Haskins, about Justin Fields, to some extent about JT Barrett. But I remember it more specifically with Dwayne because the change for him was, okay, he knew the offense. He'd been in it longer. been around Ohio State, but you still have to go out there and execute it. It's not the same as sitting in a meeting or going in a huddle or being on the field and giving all the signals. Like, he needed time to find his voice. But then once it got to that point where he clearly felt like he was in command, then those numbers go crazy.
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud needed the same opportunity, and he got it. Ryan Day, this is another part. Everybody deserves credit for the turnaround, and just focusing it purely on the quarterback situation. If Ryan Day wasn't so strong-willed and believing in his convictions of CJ Stroud, and if he was worried about his job security and listening to, oh boy, well, let's just see McCord, like, got to go to the backup. Like, he said no. He got a week off to rest the shoulder. If that's the problem, let's address it. You're the guy. You're going to move forward with you. That wasn't a benching. I think in some people's minds brought up on Saturday that they benched him and that fixed it. No, that wasn't it. They stood by him throughout all of that because it was his belief that once he got through that, growing pain transition period, that this was possible. And CJ had to do the work, but also Ryan Day had to support him. Corey Dennis had to coach him. The rest of the offense had to still believe in him and not say, oh, we'd like to see that other guy too. Like, none of that happened.
Yeah.
And so that's how all of this has flourished with him. But again, still CJ Stroud, the improvements that he made in his own game as he got more comfortable and confident, practiced better, as you wrote about last week. I mean, it's remarkable for somebody as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah. And as you well know, I'm just throwing this in there. The fact that Ryan Day never abandons the running game, he understands what power football means to a giddy up spread offense. He understands the conundrum that it poses. For example, Michigan coming up this week. You and I are both sitting there in the press box on Saturday, and yeah, you see CJ making this throw and that throw and that throw. But you know what? You see on the backside, oh my goodness, Chris Olave just broke wide open. They didn't even look that way.
Right.
But the point is, there's more to this offense than you've seen. Yeah, you understand? I mean, it's almost like a shell game where you put the little pea under the three shells and you're moving them around. And wow, now just when you figured out where, no, it's not under that shell anymore. It's gone this direction. That's what's amazing about this offense. I keep telling people is it's not like in the old days where you had like 5 running plays. I'm talking about the I formation, or 8 running plays and maybe 10 pass plays. They have nuances to everything they've run already this year that they can go to. The tight end screen coming off the goal line the other day to Jeremy Ruckert, when you so aptly put it, they've now gone to the Ruckert package and now they're going to get him a touchdown, for senior day. Didn't happen, but he was the main factor, right? He was the main factor in them getting down the field on that one possession. That was great observation, but they haven't even gone as far as they can in the tight end game. You know that you've watched football at least as half as long as I have, but after a while it all becomes mush. No offense, but isn't that right? I mean,
yeah,
you'll see options and possibilities they haven't even gone to yet.
And that's what I find pretty interesting about how Michigan could try and come up with a way to stop Ohio State, because
there's only one way. There's only one way. It's that front line has to have the game of their life. I'm talking about Michigan, because they got to figure out a way to disrupt it. But go ahead.
And they've got 2 guys who are capable of that against most competition. And we'll see exactly what happens when they're on the same field together. But Ohio State is also uniquely equipped to handle that because of the offensive linemen that we mentioned that are on that field, and the solutions that Ryan Day has concocted in the past. Like, these aren't the first really good pass rushers that Michigan has had, and the issues have come behind them. And how are you going to, if you blitz CJ Stroud or you blitz Justin Fields or you blitz Dwayne Haskins, well, what does that leave you susceptible to? And Ryan Day has called his best games of his career against these Michigan defenses. And I know that the coordinators have changed and the scheme has changed. The personnel is obviously going to be a little bit different, but as much as anybody, as much as Mickey Marotti is spending the offseason on the Michigan team up north periods and, all the emphasis they put in for 365 days, well, Ryan Day does the same.
Yeah.
He is always that. He's so cool and calm and collected in those situations. But you see him publicly, and we had brought this up before, but he understands the importance of having the best game in the game, and he has been as sharp as anybody in making sure that he's got a plan to attack Michigan when it counts. And I think that's part of the reason that it stung him and everybody else so bad, that they knew what they could do to them last year. So now he's got 2 years of that cooked up. You know that he watches a little bit extra. You know that he has seen everything that they've done, everything that, you know, this defensive staff has done in their careers, where they could be susceptible. You saw a little bit of a glimpse of how they might handle Hutchinson with the way that they dealt with George Karlaftis 2 weeks ago. Sometimes you just force them to make a decision and don't block them at all.
That was genius.
And that worked out great. You talked about it last week. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's, I think a long-winded way of saying that he can do whatever he wants with this personnel. And I think it's unlikely that they would go in without a very good plan for how to attack those two guys, because it's not just Hutchinson, but, you know, they can be disruptive. But if that's the only chance Michigan has, Ohio State's going to, I feel strongly, have a solution for that, which can be as easy for them as what other teams do to Ohio State when the ball comes out fast to keep up Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison at bay. If you're just going to flip it out to Garrett Wilson, all right, well, Aiden Hutchinson, you're not really going to be a factor in this game. Like,
Right.
They've got ways to do that, I think.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, do you think Nicholas Petit-Frere and DeJuan Jones, you remember how we talked about they had the two best tackles in the country returning, Thayer Munford, Nicholas Petit-Frere? But now, do you think Nicholas Petit-Frere and DeJuan Jones, could you make an argument they're at least they're the best tackle tandem in the Big Ten and possibly in the country? I mean, do you think is that being too hyperbolic? What do you think?
In my opinion,
That's what it's going to come down to on Saturday. These two guys having a great game too, but go ahead. Yeah.
In my opinion, based on what they've done, they deserve to be in that conversation. And, you know, you and I watch as much college football as we can, but we don't see everyone every single week. I just know that those two guys are special. Pro Football Focus had them rated as the number one tandem in the country. That group is not perfect in their evaluation either, but they've watched way more of that tape than I have.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, even if it's just confirmation bias, like, that matches what I see. They're very, very good, and this is the most explosive offense in the country.
Yeah.
And you can't have that without a great offensive line. I think the reason that they don't come up in the conversation a lot individually for awards is that everyone was talking about Thayer Munford in the offseason. He was the name that people knew. We've talked again about the process. We've been doing this a long time, and can show how the award sausage is sometimes made. It's a lot easier in the Heisman to emerge from nowhere to go on and win it, because, you know, a quarterback or running back are going to have these stats that you can't argue with, and you see the teams that are really good and the best players on them. It's just tougher on these other positions where the statistics might not match up, or you can't call attention to yourself, and they're part of one cog out of five wheels up front. And, you know, that's unfortunate for Nicholas Petit-Frere and DeJuan Jones and, you know, Paris Johnson and Luke Whippler. Like, Thayer Munford's played very well, but the fact that he's not at tackle means that people have stopped talking about him too.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes. But I agree with you. I think I'm agreeing with you. I think that those two can win individual matchups against any pass rushers, and they have to, because they practice against Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison and Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau all week long. Like, you got no choice. That's what they work against. And
I just like the joy that both of those guys are playing with. You watch them down the field. I mean, and of course, Nicholas Petit-Frere isn't quite as overt about it as DeJuan Jones. I remember there was a touchdown Saturday, and it was a play action pass play. And as everybody ran to the end zone, we're celebrating. You know, DeJuan had taken and danced with his guy on the pass rush, and then he's in the background doing this little bow, you know, just basically to himself, you know, about it. It takes 11, you know, to make a touchdown, but and then you watch that video of I think it was Lloyd McFarquhar. Did I have that name correct? leading the band the other day, and nobody is having more fun watching him lead the band at that practice. Where it is a tradition for the band to show up and serenade the Ohio State football team, and it's basically his first practice of Michigan week, and they did it way back in Archie's time, because I texted Archie just to make sure about that. But no one is, other than McFarquhar, no one's having more fun than DeJuan Jones, because he knows, man, he's part of something special, and he's enjoying it. That's what's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's not alone. I took note of that on Saturday as well. Like it was a little more obvious when Thayer Munford was spinning around in a 360 and signaling first down off of the offsides. Like when teams are like, and I know that there can be a point where you say, is this cocky confidence? You take it too far. Like that's, to me, I don't have any problem with people celebrating big plays, celebrating touchdowns. I never have. I've never, even taunting. I don't care about that. But that's just me. But like,
me too.
That shows the offensive line got a hard count and drew an offsides and moved the chains, and they celebrated that. Like, yeah, I compare that to September, like what you're saying with DeJuan, or I'm saying about there. Like, I don't believe that this team would have done that in September. They were tight. They were worried about living up to expectations. They weren't playing that well. They were doing it for the first time. They were new. They probably didn't know what you could and couldn't do on the field. All of it. They weren't having, and what we're talking about is not quantifiable, but we've seen it, and we know how to compare it to years past, and even within this year.
Yeah.
The approach of this team and the mentality of this team and the confidence of this team and the joy of this team has come incredibly far. Now, playing well is part of that. You don't get to have fun if you're not winning games. That part is understandable to me, but where it can sometimes be a chicken or egg situation is if you don't enjoy the work, then you won't win either. So I think this team, and it goes back to what you said also about Stroud and his preparation and what you wrote about last week. Like, if he doesn't like putting in the work to be that good, well, then you don't win the Heisman. You don't stay as the starting quarterback at Ohio State. You don't become a first-round draft pick down the road. Like, if that part is just a job to you, then you're never going to be great at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's changed for this team.
I agree. You know what's funny is just in interviews, he comes off as the most serious guy on the team right now. I mean, you know what I mean? Which is kind of what you want, You want guys having a good time, but letting it all hang out, And but he comes. He clearly has things in mind, and without a doubt, he has to know he's the odds-on favorite or one of the top two favorites for the Heisman Trophy right now. But he knows it doesn't happen if he doesn't finish strong. But on top of it, he's got this team, this offense going exactly the way he wants it to go. You're seeing him play ball out there. You're seeing him play his game. And we've seen this evolution of him, like we talked about earlier, over this season. And it's something to behold. And like I've been saying all along, man, people need to take pictures, at least mental pictures right now, of this offense and the way this quarterback is running it, because it isn't like this every year. It isn't like this every year with Lane Kiffin and his offense and stuff. A lot of pieces have to come together, Mike Leach, et cetera. A lot of pieces have to come together along with a great scheme. And you're seeing it right before your eyes at Ohio State. And it really, people should enjoy it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a great reminder. I completely agree with you, because we know that there are more very talented wide receivers on the way, and that Brian Hartline is not slowing down. You saw Julian Fleming playing and scoring a touchdown in a top 10 game on Saturday. Marvin Harrison, Emeka Ibuka, once he's healthy and back in that lineup.
Yeah, and Jackson's going to be back next year.
And then obviously the headliner there would be Jackson, but so that's great. Like, they have really good units moving forward. You can count on that. The position coach probably not going anywhere. The standard has been set the same way that it was passed down from Terry McLaurin and KJ Hill and Austin Mack and these other guys. Like, that's cool, but they're all different. And there's never going to be another one with the all-time career leader in Ohio State touchdown catches in Chris Olave, somebody with first-round just dynamic athleticism that can do something every single week that you've never seen before in Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Jackson is part of this now, but it'll be different for him next year. Like the roles will change. The amount of targets are going to change. The way Ohio State's passing game will look different because those guys are not the same. Like, and to that mental picture that you're talking about, like how special it was for Olave to get that touchdown number 35 in the ball and the tape around it and the look on his face. You got to remember that because there's going to be other good Ohio State offenses. And maybe we'll talk about them and say, is this one better than 2021? And maybe they will be. But some of the journeys along the way, especially for a guy like Olave, I mean, you don't want to – that moment's about to be gone.
Yeah.
And it's worth remembering it now.
Yeah, it was funny, that football, I kept thinking as he was holding it the other day when he walked into the interview room. And but I was thinking about the fact that when Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run, everybody went crazy, you know. Well, he wound up with 755, you know. Talk about taking the stake and putting it much farther out into the pond. I know, you know, the other guy broke that record, you know, but obviously there's been a lot of question marks about that whole situation. But you see where I'm going here. Chris Olave has at least 2 games left and probably 4, you know, and it's really hard right now to be sitting here. It's hard for anybody to be even the national pundits now. They're all sitting here going, boy, can't wait to see Ohio State play Georgia. That's the dream matchup, you know. But oh my goodness, there's so much football between now and what that could be. It's crazy, right? But you can't help yourself if you're a football fan.
And that's the way it goes. We're looking so much forward to what I assume on Tuesday night will be the release of, all right, well, these are number 1 and number 2 now. We don't even need to have that conversation on this podcast this week. But like, oh my goodness, well, it's Georgia's defense and Ohio State's offense. Well, I mean, look, Alabama's probably still going to be in the top 4, and Georgia and Alabama are going to play each other in the SEC championship game. I think we'd all, as college football fans, really like to see that one first. This is the game, and they're going to be in the both top 6, top 5, top 4. They could both be in the top 4 on Tuesday night.
Yes.
Who knows? It doesn't matter. Like, this is the most storied rivalry in college football, and it's for the Big Ten East championship. And to go to go do the other things, like, you don't have to fast forward it. This week is special. Next week is special. Yeah. And I didn't intend for this to be that direction, but this is the reason why we already have an expanded playoff. Like,
yes,
everyone, like, if they had just said you have to win a conference championship, well, guess what? You just doubled the size of the field without even having to argue with the Rose Bowl or any of those other logistics. Like, Alabama and Georgia get to play their way in. Ohio State and Michigan get to play their way in this week. Yeah. I mean, what more could you ask for? If those are the 4 teams that are in the top 4 on Tuesday night, guess what? We're already in the playoff.
Yeah. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a conversation with my co-pilot, Austin Ward. We have a lot of time here because we put the plane on autopilot and just let it kind of fly itself. And then
I think I took us to a different airport there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, man. We went cross country and we may have ventured into Canada. We may be in trouble. We may have crossed international lines without clearance. But I digress. Austin Ward, looking forward to this week, man. Looking forward to this next month, man. It's going to be an interesting time. And that next month, I think definitely includes you being the lead writer there and everything at LettermenRow.com. A trip to New York again for the Heisman Trophy celebration, the Heisman Trophy ceremony. I think CJ's pretty much. I think he's pretty much nailed that down, don't you think? I mean, at least a trip to New York City.
I have a flight and hotel already booked for the middle of December. So now the hotel is refundable, but I have a non-refundable flight to go to New York City on that second weekend in December. I can't imagine that he wouldn't be a finalist. And I think that on Saturday, you win that game, I think he wins the Heisman. But
yeah,
Bryce Young may have a counter argument against Georgia. We'll see. It's got to come from those two.
I just like how smart you and I are. I mean, I'm bragging on both of us because there are others who think this way too. But I just kept telling everybody, man, if CJ Stroud is anywhere close to being as good as we think he is, this was way back in July and August, he's going to be in the Heisman hunt because of this offense. But this offense, in part and parcel, is as good as it is because of CJ Stroud. What comes first, the chicken or the egg, like you said a while ago? Hey, you got to have a good chicken. You got to have a nice egg. I mean, how do you explain that? But you don't just put an average, mediocre quarterback to run the show of an offense like this. And when you've got a great one, wow, he can really take you places. And like I said, as we sit here this moment, no one's taken this an Ohio State offense to more places or farther. Let's put it that way: average yards per game than CJ Stroud has to this point. There's something to be said about that. This is legit, right?
Yep. And you say this all the time. Like, he is behind the wheel of a sports car. There's no doubt about that. But as far as I know, they're still not making a lot of those that can drive themselves. So
yeah.
Somebody has to take the wheel. And even to some extent, when we put it that way, and it's meant as praise for the rest of the pieces around him.
Yes.
Not a knock on the guy driving it. And I think sometimes the way we talk about it, and that there's so much around him, and maybe not you or I, but certainly the conversation that, oh, well, Bryce Young is doing this without Ohio State's wide receivers, like not as much talent. Did you say that about Joe Burrow? I mean, did you say that about Mac Jones last year? I know he didn't win it, but I've never heard this argument, like there's too much around it. And I got sidetracked there, but the point is,
I know where you went there, though. I saw all the sites on that road trip. Go ahead.
Yeah, that one, people can watch some other shows this week and get my thoughts on that. But
yeah,
but the driver still counts. Like,
yes,
you love auto racing. Like, you have the most expensive research team and the best pit crew and everything else that I don't know about. But the driver has to know what to do with it.
Yeah,
and Stroud has done that. And this team is operating because it has a driver that can take advantage of the vehicle he's in.
Yeah. And the main thing you tell that driver before he goes out, hey, I don't care what you do. You do your thing. Just don't crash.
Don't wreck it.
Don't crash. And that's what, if I was Ryan Day, that's what I'd be telling him on Saturday. You got a lot of weapons at your disposal. Somebody's going to be open. If you have the time and or eat the football, throw it away. Just don't crash. And we know what a crash is.
But not only does he know how to avoid crashing it, he knows he can push the pedal.
Yes.
He can take it to top speed.
He's no longer bashful about standing on the gas.
There it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the conclusion of yet another Tim May podcast with co-pilot Austin Ward. Austin Ward, I know your mom on this Thanksgiving week is giving thanks. I'm calling you by your name.
That's right.
Your real God-given name or parents' given name, who I think divine intervention probably came into a play there to give you that name, Austin. It's funny how they end up living just south of Austin, Texas. Isn't it funny how things go?
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Life's a trip, man.
But you know what? Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, when we chop up the Ohio State-Michigan game, in my opinion, we're going to be also looking forward to the Ohio State Big Ten Championship game, probably against Wisconsin. You agree with that, don't you, Austin?
I do.
Okay. Until then, this is Tim May. We'll see you then.